Kia ora class, I'm going to go through the final little bit for this exemplar. So we've gone over tool, trial, record and part of the conclusion. So in this one I'm going to go over the part of the conclusion where we talk about average number and then the discussion as well. And this involves a little bit of calculation on our Google Sheet as well. So in this it said you need to write a conclusion about the number of assessments that actually will need to pass with excellence. Your conclusion needs to include estimates of the average number of the assessments needed, the chances of actually passing with excellence and any other findings. So we've given the chances of actually passing with excellence and I showed you how to do that in the last video. And so now we need to look at the average number of assessments needed. So we're going to work that out on Google Sheets. So coming back to this, we looked at whether it was a successful trial or not. Now we're going to look at number of assessments needed. Before getting excellence. Okay, so we're going to look at how many assessments that actually completed before he got that final excellence grade and passed with excellence overall. So in this first trial, he did 4 assessments and he got his first green, so that means it took 4 assessments to get that green, that excellence overall. In this one, the second trial, he got the excellence on the 5th assessment, so he needed 5 to get that last excellence. On the third trial, he didn't get excellence at all on any of the assessments, so that trial we needed to go through all 8. And you'll notice that on each of the zeros, so showing us when we have an unsuccessful trial, you would have gone through all 8 and not got an excellence, so that those will all have 8 on them. This third one, he got the excellence on the first assessment in this trial. So again, this is just a simulation. This is just us running some numbers to see what we think will happen. So on this time that we ran the numbers, he got excellence on the first assessment. On the next one, he got excellence on the first assessment as well, so we put a 1 there because he only needed to do 1 assessment. He got that excellence grade. On this trial, he got that excellence on assessment 6, so he needed 6. On this one, he got it on number 2. On the next one, he got it on number 4, and so on. This one, he got the first excellence on number 1. This one, he got it on number 6. This one, he got it on number 8. Sorry, that's not right. Got it on number 3. This one was on number 5. This one was on number 8. This one was an unsuccessful trial, so he needed to do all 8. He still didn't get excellence. This one was on number 2. This one was unsuccessful, so number 8. Number 5, got it on number 5. Got it on number 8. Got it on, well, didn't get it at all, so this one, that should be 8. This one, he did number 3. This one was unsuccessful, so he had to do all 8. This one, he got it on number 5. If you want to see another example of this, go to the last videos for the first example on chicken breeding. So that's the first assignment. That one he had to do all 8, still didn't get excellence. This one got the excellence on assessment 8. This one he got it on number 1. This one he got it on number 1 as well. This one he got it on number 5. This one on number 7. This one on number 1. And that's that. Okay, so on each of these, and you should check through them, this was the number of assessments he needed before he got excellence. So that was on number 4. So you would check through each of these to make sure those numbers are right. And then we've got to figure out what the average number of assessments needed was. So that means that if all of these trials gave him the same number of assessments before he got excellence, what would that number be? So we're going to work that out by working out the average, which is another formula in this sheet. So average number of assessments needed before excellence grade equals and we're going to take the average of this column, which is all of these numbers added together and then divided by how many numbers we have. So all of these, all the way up to the top, added together and then divided by 30, because we have 30 numbers. So if all those numbers were the same, this is the number that we'd get. Now, Google Sheets has a formula to do this, so we don't actually have to add them up all ourselves. We can just write average, bracket, and then select all of these. Whoop, that went too far. Like that. Average bracket K2 to K31. And that is, it's already worked it out, it's 4.83. Now we're going to make this we're going to round that properly, round it sensibly. Because you can't do 4.83 assessments. You can only do 4 assessments or 5 assessments. You can only do what's called a discrete number of assessments. You have to complete an assessment before you get a grade, and you can't do part of one, which is why 4.83 doesn't make sense. And we always have to round up, because he didn't meet that at 4, but he would meet it at 5. So you have to round up in this one. So that will be 5 assessments. So now that we've worked that out, we can put that into our conclusion. So that's here. The average number of assessment grades given before he receives an excellence grade is the total assessments needed divided by 30. So that's all of those numbers added together divided by 30 gives you your average, and we gave, that was 5. So you have to round it sensibly. So the estimated average number of assessments needed before he receives an excellence grade and achieves level 1 with excellence is 5. So he would, on average, need to complete 5 of those last 8 assessments, and he would probably get that excellence overall. And as mentioned in the last video, any results found in this simulation should be treated with caution, as it is an estimate and will likely be different if the simulation was repeated again. That's important because this was all random numbers, so if you did this again, you'd get a bunch of different random numbers and it might change your results. So this is an estimate of what we think is going to happen. So that's your conclusion done. Now, for your discussion, I've written down 2 assumptions which may affect this simulation. So the first assumption is that we assumed all his assessments are of the same difficulty level, and so he has an equal chance of getting an excellence grade on each assessment. But if an assessment is more difficult for him, it will decrease the likelihood of him passing this with excellence, so it'll be below 17%. And if an assessment is easier for him, it is more likely that he will pass this with excellence, and that will increase the probability above 17%. So the effect on our results is that our probabilities might not be reliable enough to have a reliable simulation. So that if the probabilities aren't reliable, our simulation won't be reliable. If the assessments are more difficult than expected, it will be less likely that he passes one with excellence and passes level 1 with excellence overall. And he will need to complete more assessments before that happens. If the assessments are less difficult than expected, it will be more likely that he passes one with excellence and passes level 1 with excellence overall. And he will need to complete fewer assessments before this happens. So that's the comment on our probability of success and how many assessments he needs. So that's the results that we got in the conclusion. Here, we comment on how they will change if the situation is different to the one that we used in this assessment, in this simulation. Now our second assumption is that we're assuming that any one of his last assessments, if passed with excellence, will give him enough credits to meet the 50 credit mark to pass with level 1 with excellence overall. This investigation said that he needed to get one of his assessments with excellence. It didn't say which one, it didn't say how many credits. So we're assuming that any of those last ones would give him enough credits to meet that 50 credit mark and pass with excellence overall. So if they all had the same credits, that means that every assessment will be treated equally, even if some are worth more credits than others. If he needs more credits than an assessment is worth, he may not focus on this assessment as much as another one, which would give him enough credits, and he'd be less likely to pass the first one with excellence and more likely to pass the second one with excellence that he was trying harder for. So that may decrease the probability of getting excellence on the first assessment and increase the probability of him getting excellence on the second one. Even if he achieves the first one with excellence, he will not have achieved enough credits to pass with excellence overall, and he will need to get excellence on another assessment. He may even focus on passing 2 assessments with excellence that are worth enough credits together to pass with excellence overall, instead of focusing on one large assessment. So it depends on his strategy for getting excellence overall, and that changes the probabilities of him getting excellence on each assessment. So he probably wouldn't treat them all equally, because they're probably worth different amounts of credits and they have different difficulty levels. So the effect on the results is it may make the results of the simulation less reliable, as, like the first assumption, other factors are at play which would change the probabilities of getting each grade in each assessment. There are many different strategies he could employ, such as focusing more on one assessment worth enough credits to get 50 excellence credits overall, which would increase the probability of him passing this assessment with excellence and decrease the probability of him passing the other assessments with excellence. So the recommendation, based on these assumptions that may affect the simulation, is that Akshay only use the simulation as an indication of his likelihood to pass the one with excellence, as other factors such as the difficulty of the assessments and how many credits an assessment is worth come into play. To give himself the best chance of passing, he should study for each assessment for a long period of time, do lots of practice tests, and ask his teachers for feedback on how he's doing so he can improve. Getting feedback from his teachers would also give him more information about how he is likely to perform in the assessments. He should talk to his teachers about the best strategies to use to improve his probabilities of getting enough credits to make sure he passes level 1 with excellence. So I'm just going to change that a little bit. So that's something that you can explore. You may think of different things that might affect the simulation as well, but you need to talk about the effect on the simulation and how that would affect the results. And you might want to do a recommendation from that as well. Thanks for watching. Good luck.